Right now, beneath the surface of the ocean, there are cities, streets, walls, columns, staircases, not ruins left by shipwrecks, not coral formations that happen to look like buildings. Actual stone structures built by human hands, sitting on the ocean floor in places where no city should ever have existed. 150 meters long, 27 meters tall, terraces rising like the steps of a pyramid, perfect right angles, polished floors, and in some cases dating back more than 7,000 years. Off the coast of France, divers recently pulled back the curtain on a megalithic wall so old it predates every known monument in Europe by 5 centuries. In Japan, a stepped monolith the size of a football stadium sits 25 meters underwater, and after nearly 4 decades of study, no one can agree on whether nature or humans put it there. In India, sonar scans just revealed harbor walls described in a sacred text, written thousands of years before anyone had the technology to see them. In Egypt, a submerged port connected by a secret tunnel may lead to the most famous lost tomb in history. And in the Bahamas, a stone road stretching half a mile across the seafloor was predicted by a psychic 30 years before anyone found it. 5 places, 5 oceans. One impossible question. Who built these and why are they underwater?
Welcome back. I spent weeks going down this rabbit hole, and I have to be honest with you, the deeper I went, the less I understood. Because these are not fringe theories or blurry photographs. These are peer-reviewed discoveries, government-funded expeditions, and stone structures you can touch with your own hands if you put on a wetsuit and dive. Today we are going to cross 5 oceans and explore 5 underwater worlds that should not exist. And I promise you, by the end, you will never look at the ocean the same way again. Let us start with the one that just broke in late 2025, because almost nobody is talking about it yet.
Off the western tip of Brittany, France, there is a small island called Ile de Seine. It is barely 2 meters above sea level. A few hundred people live there. Fishermen, mostly. Nothing about it screams ancient mystery. But 9 meters below the waves surrounding that island, divers found something that made archaeologists across Europe rethink everything they thought they knew about prehistoric construction. A wall, not a pile of rocks. A wall, 120 meters long, 20 meters wide, 2 meters high, built from stacked blocks of granite, reinforced by more than 60 upright monoliths, some reaching 1.7 meters tall, arranged in 2 parallel lines along the top. The total mass of stone moved to build this single structure is estimated at 3,300 tons, and it was built between 5,800 and 5,300 years before the Common Era. That is 7,000 years ago, before Stonehenge existed, before the Egyptian pyramids were even a concept, before anyone in Europe had invented writing. A team led by geologist Yves Fouquet first spotted the anomaly in 2017 while studying laser-produced maps of the ocean floor. He thought it was a glitch in the data. It was not a glitch. Between 2022 and 2024, divers went down and confirmed it with their own eyes. 11 separate stone structures. Some appear to be fish traps. Others look like defensive barriers against the sea. But the largest one, the one they call TAF 1, is something else entirely. The monoliths were placed first, driven into the bedrock, and then the wall was filled in around them. This is not random stacking. This is engineering. This is planning. This is a structured society capable of extracting, transporting, and erecting multi-ton granite blocks 500 years before any other known megalithic construction in Western Europe.
Let me put that in perspective for you. 500 years. That is the gap between Christopher Columbus and us. That is how far ahead of their time these builders were. And here is the part that gave me chills. These were not farmers. They were not the settled agricultural societies that textbooks say built the first monuments. These were hunter-gatherers, people we were taught lived in small, nomadic groups chasing animals and picking berries. And yet they organized themselves well enough to move 3,300 tons of granite into a coordinated structure on a coastline. That is the weight of roughly 22 fully loaded Boeing 737 airplanes. Moved by people without wheels, without metal tools, without written language. And the theories did not take long to surface.
The most romantic theory came from the locals themselves. For centuries, the people of Brittany have told stories of a sunken city called Wise. According to legend, Yais was the most beautiful city in Europe, built below sea level and protected by a great dike. One day, the dike was breached, and the ocean swallowed the city whole. It became one of the most enduring myths in Celtic folklore. And the Bay of Dwarka, where Yais is said to lie, is just 10 kilometers east of where the wall was found. The researchers themselves acknowledged the connection. Their published study states that the abandonment of a territory developed by a highly structured society likely became deeply rooted in collective memory. The submersion caused by rapid sea level rise, followed by the abandonment of fishing structures, protective works, and habitation sites, must have left a lasting impression. In other words, the legend of Yais may not be a legend at all. It may be the echo of a real catastrophe passed down orally for 7,000 years, the longest game of telephone in human history. But the scientific truth behind the wall is arguably more stunning than the myth. Geologists confirmed that when these structures were built, they were not underwater. They sat on the shoreline, between the high and low tide marks. The ocean rose. The land did not move. The sea simply climbed centimeter by centimeter, year by year, until the wall, the monoliths, the fish traps, and the people who built them were erased from the map. Not by a dramatic flood, not by divine punishment, by the slow, silent patience of the sea.
And that, to me, is more haunting than any myth. Because we are not talking about a one-time disaster, we are talking about a process. A generation builds the wall. Their grandchildren watch the water inch closer. Their great-grandchildren abandon the coast. And within a few centuries, the ocean owns everything. No war, no earthquake, just time. And here is what the researchers said that hit me the hardest. The technical skill to extract, transport, and erect these monoliths existed 500 years before any megalithic construction previously known in Western France. That means the famous standing stones of Karnak, the great dolmens of Brittany, the whole tradition that defines prehistoric Europe, may have started here, underwater, in a place we only just found. But France is just the beginning, because on the other side of the planet, in the waters off Japan, there is something even stranger. And this one, nobody can agree on at all.
In 1986, a diver named Kihachiru Aratake was swimming off the southern coast of Yonaguni Island, the westernmost point of Japan, just 111 kilometers from Taiwan. He was not looking for ruins. He was looking for hammerhead sharks. What he found instead was a structure so enormous and so geometrically precise that it has divided the scientific community for nearly 4 decades. 150 meters long, 40 meters wide, 27 meters tall, terraces stepping upward like a pyramid, flat platforms, right angles, what appears to be a long trench running parallel to a clean rock face. Isolated monoliths rising from the seabed like carved sentinels, all of it sitting 25 meters below the surface. The rock itself is sandstone, estimated at 20 million years old. But the question is not how old the rock is. The question is whether someone shaped it. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus has spent more than 15 years diving the site, measuring every surface, mapping every feature. He claims to have identified quarry marks, rudimentary characters etched into the stone, and rocks sculpted into the likenesses of animals. He believes the monument was built by human hands at least 5,000 years ago, when sea levels were low enough for the structure to stand on dry land. He has called it a stepped monolith, a city. Perhaps even a remnant of the legendary lost continent of Mu.
And that is what makes Yonaguni so maddening. It is not a clear answer. It is a maybe. Nature might have built it. Humans might have modified it. Or humans might have built all of it and the evidence was erased by 10,000 years of ocean currents. We do not know. And after 4 decades of diving, measuring, and arguing, we still do not know. The Japanese government has never officially recognized the site as a cultural artifact. No formal excavation has ever taken place. The monument just sits there, 25 meters down, daring someone to solve it. But if Yonaguni is a question without an answer, the next place on our list is an answer that came thousands of years too late. Because in India, a sacred text described a sunken city in extraordinary detail. And then archaeologists found it exactly where the text said it would be.
Robert Schoch, a geologist at Boston University, has dived the site multiple times. His conclusion is unequivocal. The monument is natural. He points out that the sandstone in the region contains well-defined parallel bedding planes, along which the layers easily separate. The rocks are crisscrossed by sets of parallel vertical joints. Yonaguni sits in an earthquake-prone region within the Pacific Ring of Fire, and those earthquakes fracture rock in remarkably regular patterns. The result is terraces that look carved but are not, steps that look built but were broken, right angles that look deliberate but were created by the intersection of horizontal beds and vertical joints. And he is not alone. In 2019, researchers Takayuki Ogata and colleagues conducted a detailed topographical analysis using digital elevation models and confirmed that similar step-like features exist above water on Yonaguni's coastline. The cliffs on the south coast break into natural stair-step shapes. The geology does this on its own, no tools required, and crucially, no artifacts have ever been found at the site. No pottery, no tools, no inscriptions, no bones. Nothing that definitively proves a human hand shaped the stone. Even Schoch, however, left a door open. He acknowledged that while the monument is 95% natural, parts may have been touched up by ancient humans. The island does show evidence of early habitation, and the ancient inhabitants may have admired and even utilized the natural formation, just as prehistoric Europeans painted inside naturally formed caves.
Let me say that again. A 560-meter-long wall, exactly where a text written thousands of years ago said it would be, with construction details that match the description in the epic. I read that 3 times and I still could not believe it. A sacred poem told us where to look, and when we finally looked, it was there. But the story does not end in the 1990s, because in 2025, the search started again. And this time, the technology is something else entirely.
The Mahabharata is one of the oldest and longest epics in human history. Written in Sanskrit, it contains over 200,000 verses and tells the story of a great war, divine intervention, and the rise and fall of kingdoms. One of those kingdoms was Dwarka, the legendary capital of Lord Krishna, said to have been built on land reclaimed from the ocean on the western coast of India. According to the text, Dwarka was a fortified city spanning 84 kilometers with 900 palaces, streets arranged in grid patterns, and an advanced harbor that could only be reached by ship. The Mahabharata describes its destruction with chilling precision. The sea rushed into the city. It coursed through the streets. The beautiful buildings became submerged one by one. In a matter of a few moments, it was all over. The sea had now become as placid as a lake. There was no trace of the city. For centuries, historians dismissed this as mythology, a beautiful story, nothing more. Then, in 1983, everything changed. Dr. S.R. Rao, leading a team from India's National Institute of Oceanography, launched the first systematic underwater archaeological expedition off the coast of modern-day Dwarka in Gujarat. Over 12 expeditions between 1983 and 1990, his team documented stone walls, fort bastions, and the remains of an entire planned settlement beneath the Arabian Sea. They found a 560-meter-long wall whose structure matched descriptions in the Mahabharata. They recovered triangular stone anchors with 3 holes, a design consistent with advanced Harappan-era maritime technology. They pulled up pottery fragments, copper rings, inscribed potsherds, and glass beads, some dating back more than 3,000 years.
That question keeps me up at night. Because it is not just about Dwarka. It is about what else those texts might be telling us that we have not bothered to check. We spent centuries calling these stories myths, and then we put on scuba gear and found exactly what they described. It makes you wonder how many other legends are sitting on the ocean floor, waiting. And speaking of legends waiting underwater, let me take you to Egypt, because what was just found off the coast near Alexandria might solve the greatest archaeological mystery of the ancient world.
In February 2025, the Archaeological Survey of India's Underwater Archaeology Wing resumed explorations at Dwarka under Professor Alok Tripathi. For the first time, the team included 3 women archaeologists, marking both a historic and symbolic milestone. Using advanced side-scan sonar and multi-beam surveys, the team mapped structural anomalies across a wider area than any previous expedition. They found harbor-like masonry structures and additional Harappan-style stone anchors deeper offshore, in areas never before surveyed. An interim field note filed in April listed early recoveries, including clusters of anchors, inscribed potsherds, copper rings, and an L-shaped dressed stone segment lying between 5 and 12 meters below the surface along the eastern flank of Gomati Creek. Photogrammetric models are being run to refine dating, and thermoluminescence analysis of pottery fragments has yielded dates around 3,000 to 3,500 years ago, aligning closely with traditional Mahabharata timelines. The convergence between the ancient text and the modern findings is, in the words of one researcher, nothing short of extraordinary. How did ancient Sanskrit texts, composed when there were no submarines, no sonar, no underwater archaeology, describe with such geographical precision a city that now lies beneath the sea?
A tunnel, 1,300 meters long, carved beneath a temple dedicated to the god of death, pointing straight at the ocean, and filled with artifacts from the exact era when Cleopatra lived and died. When I read about this, I literally stopped what I was doing and just stared at the screen. Because the question is obvious. Where does the tunnel lead? And in 2025, they found out.
Taposiris Magna sits about 48 kilometers west of Alexandria, Egypt. The name itself means Great Tomb of Osiris. It is a Ptolemaic-era temple complex, more than 2,000 years old, dedicated to the god of death and resurrection. For most of its history, scholars considered it a minor religious site. Then a Dominican archaeologist named Kathleen Martinez arrived in 2002. She had spent the previous 10 years studying one thing, the life and death of Cleopatra. While most Egyptologists focused their search for Cleopatra's tomb on the ruins of Alexandria's royal quarter, Martinez looked elsewhere. She believed the queen, facing capture by Rome after the Battle of Actium in 30 BCE, would have chosen a burial site beyond the reach of her enemies. A place with deep religious meaning. A place connected to Isis, the goddess Cleopatra identified with throughout her reign. A place like Taposiris Magna. Over 2 decades of excavation, Martinez's team uncovered 27 tombs containing 10 mummies, 2 of them gilded, indicating royal status. They recovered 337 bronze coins bearing the face and name of Cleopatra. They found ritual pottery, oil lamps, limestone vessels, and bronze statues. And in 2022, they discovered something extraordinary. A tunnel. 1,300 meters long, carved 40 feet underground, partially flooded with seawater, running from the temple complex directly toward the Mediterranean Sea. Inside the tunnel, ceramic jars and pottery from the Ptolemaic period.
Nobody can tell me that Cleopatra is not a Taposiris Magna. That is what Martinez said. And honestly, after seeing the evidence, I do not think anyone can blame her for the confidence. We are looking at a woman who spent 23 years following a single hunch, and the ocean just handed her a port, a tunnel, and 337 coins with the queen's face on them. Whether or not Cleopatra's actual remains are found, what has already been uncovered is staggering. An entire maritime infrastructure that no ancient text ever mentioned, sitting on the seafloor for 2,000 years, invisible until someone thought to look. But our last stop might be the strangest of all. Because in the Bahamas, a stone road was found underwater in 1968, and a psychic had predicted exactly where and when it would appear 30 years earlier.
Martinez recruited marine archaeologist and Titanic discoverer Bob Ballard to explore what lay at the end of that tunnel beneath the Mediterranean. Working with the Egyptian Navy, Larry Mayer from the University of New Hampshire, and the Egyptian Department of Underwater Antiquities, the team used sonar to map the seafloor off the coast. Then divers went down. 12 meters below the surface, they found a submerged port, not scattered debris. A port, a series of massive constructions arranged in rows, rising more than 6 meters high. Cemented blocks, columns, polished stone floors, multiple anchors, Ptolemaic amphorae. The tall clay storage vessels used across the Greek and Roman world. The ancient coastline, they determined, was once located about 4 kilometers inland from where it is today. Over the centuries, at least 23 earthquakes struck the Egyptian coast between 320 and 1303 of the Common Era, including a devastating tsunami triggered by the Crete earthquake of 365. Piece by piece, the port sank. The temple's connection to the sea was severed, and whatever lay at the end of that tunnel disappeared beneath the waves. Martinez's theory is precise. After Cleopatra's death, her body was transported to Taposiris Magna, carried through the tunnel to the offshore port, and laid to rest at a location designed to remain hidden from Rome forever. Ancient writers, including Plutarch, wrote that Cleopatra and Mark Antony were buried together. Their tomb has never been found in Alexandria. Now there is a tunnel, a port, coins with Cleopatra's face, gilded mummies, and a submerged landscape that lines up with the theory.
I want to be careful here. I am not saying Casey was right about Atlantis. I am not saying this is the road to a lost continent. What I am saying is that a man described a specific place, a specific type of discovery, and a specific 2-year window, 3 decades before it happened. And it happened. That does not prove anything supernatural, but it does make you pause. And when you dive down to that road and see those blocks laid out in perfect rows for half a mile, the pause gets a lot longer. So what is the Bimini Road? Is it human-made? Or did the Earth just happen to create something that looks exactly like a highway?
In September of 1968, 3 divers, Joseph Manson Valentine, Jacques Mayol, and Robert Angove, were swimming in about 5.5 meters of water off the northwest coast of North Bimini Island in the Bahamas, roughly 80 kilometers east of Miami. What they found on the seafloor stopped them cold. A pavement, large, roughly rectangular blocks of limestone, laid out in a continuous line, stretching 800 meters, half a mile. The blocks measured up to 4 meters across. Many had nearly straight edges and right angles. The formation ran in a northeast-southwest direction with a pronounced hook at its southwestern end, curving like the letter J. 2 shorter, parallel features, around 50 and 60 meters long, lay closer to shore. It looked, unmistakably, like a road, or a wall, or a pier, or a breakwater, something built, something deliberate. And here is where the story takes a turn that nobody can quite explain away. In 1938, 30 years before the discovery, an American clairvoyant named Edgar Cayce had made a prediction during one of his recorded trances. He said that a portion of the temples of Atlantis may yet be discovered under the slime of ages and seawater near Bimini. Expected in 68 or 69, the Bimini Road was found in 1968, near Bimini. under the sea. You can dismiss Edgar Cayce, many scientists do, but the coincidence is, at minimum, unsettling.
So science says it is natural, and the evidence is strong. But here is what the skeptics themselves admit. The concentration of so many geometrically regular features in such a small area is unusual. The relative absence of loose debris on the flat surfaces is hard to explain if they were formed purely by erosion. The hook at the southwestern end does not follow the straight line of the ancient shore. And there are reports, not fully verified, of lower supporting layers beneath the visible blocks. Something that would suggest stacking, deliberate placement. Graham Hancock, who featured Bimini Road in his Netflix series, argues that the sheer regularity of the formation defies typical geological processes. Geologists counter that our brains are wired to see intention in patterns, that symmetry does not equal design, that nature makes right angles all the time. And honestly, both sides have a point. The truth is probably somewhere in between, and that uncertainty, that inability to close the book, is exactly what makes Bimini Road so magnetic.
The scientific consensus leans heavily toward a natural explanation. Geologists who have drilled core samples from the Bimini Road blocks determined they are composed of beach rock, a well-cemented sedimentary limestone made of peloids, sand, shell fragments, and ancient protozoan remains called benthic foraminifera. Beach rock forms relatively quickly in tropical intertidal zones. It starts as a continuous sheet, then fractures along natural joints into rectangular blocks, creating what geologists call a tessellated pavement. And this process is not unique to Bimini. Identical formations have been found eroding out of the shore of Loggerhead Key in the dry Tortugas. Similar pavements exist off Andros Island, in the Exuma chain, off the coast of Puerto Rico, and 90 meters below the surface at Pulley Ridge, Florida. Eugene Shin, the geologist who conducted some of the most rigorous studies, found no artifacts, no wheel ruts, no tool marks, and no evidence that the stones had been placed by humans. Radiocarbon dating placed the rocks between 2,000 and 4,000 years old, far too young for Atlantis, which Plato described as existing over 11,000 years ago. The location does not match Plato's description either. He placed Atlantis near the Strait of Gibraltar, not in the Caribbean. And the blocks are not assembled from separate stones. They are fractured sections of a single larger sheet, still connected to the underlying limestone bedrock. In 2004 and 2005, Hurricanes Charlie and Katrina actually exposed fresh beach rock formations off the dry Tortugas that were visually identical to Bimini Road, demonstrating in real time that nature can produce these structures.
Think about that for a second. We have explored roughly 5% of the ocean floor. 5%. And in that 5%, we have already found 7,000-year-old walls in France, a stepped monument in Japan that nobody can explain, a sacred city in India confirmed by sonar, a lost port in Egypt that might hold the tomb of a queen, and a stone road in the Bahamas that a psychic predicted 30 years early. 5%. What is in the other 95?
And perhaps the most fascinating detail of all is this. The Bimini Road is not alone. Across the world, underwater structures keep appearing. In the Baltic Sea, prehistoric stone alignments have been found, built by ancient communities to channel migrating animals. Off the coast of Greece, the 5,000-year-old sunken town of Pavlopetri has been mapped in extraordinary detail. Near Cuba, sonar has detected geometric formations on the deep ocean floor that remain unexplained. Off the coast of Okinawa, beyond Yonaguni, additional submerged features dot the seafloor. Each discovery adds another page to a chapter of human history that was written not on land, but on coastlines that no longer exist, because here is the fundamental truth that ties all 5 of these sites together. For most of human civilization, sea levels were dramatically lower than they are today. During the last ice age, the ocean was more than 100 meters below its current level. The coastlines where early humans lived, fished, built and organized their societies are now underwater. We have been digging for our past in the wrong places. The real archaeological record, the missing chapter, is sitting on continental shelves around the world, buried under sand and salt water and time.
You know what keeps coming back to me? The wall in France, 7,000 years old, built by people we called primitive, hunter-gatherers. No writing, no metal, no wheels. And they moved 3,300 tons of granite into a coordinated structure that lasted 7 millennia. Our concrete lasts 50 years. Our highways need repaving every decade. Our buildings are designed to stand for maybe a century before someone tears them down and builds something new. These people built for eternity. And the only reason we did not know is that the ocean decided to keep the secret.
The ocean is not empty. It is an archive. Every rising tide erased a village. Every century of glacial melt swallowed another coastline. The history we learn in school begins with Mesopotamia, with Egypt, with the Indus Valley. But those civilizations did not appear from nothing. They were built on the knowledge of people who came before, people who lived on shores that are now seabeds, people whose monuments are now diving sites, people whose names and languages and songs were drowned along with their cities. And the most humbling part is this. We call ourselves the most advanced civilization in history. We have satellites that can read a license plate from orbit. We have submarines that can reach the deepest trenches, and yet the ocean floor remains more mysterious to us than the surface of Mars. We have better maps of the moon than we do of our own seafloor. The answers are not in the stars. They are right beneath us. 12 meters down off Egypt, 9 meters down off France, 25 meters down off Japan, waiting.
I started this video thinking I was going to tell you about some underwater rocks. I am ending it thinking about something much bigger. About how much we do not know. About how confidently we dismiss the past. About how every time we say that is impossible, someone dives down and pulls up proof that it happened. Maybe the real lost civilization is not Atlantis. Maybe it is us. Future humans digging through our rubble, wondering how a species with satellites and supercomputers managed to lose so much of its own story. Stay with me. There is always more to uncover.
History is not a straight line pointing upward. It is a spiral. Civilizations rise, master their environment, build things that seem impossible, and then vanish, taking their knowledge with them. The ocean absorbs their cities, sand covers their roads, and thousands of years later, someone puts on a wetsuit, dives 20 meters down, and touches a polished stone floor that has not felt a human hand since before the pyramids existed. In France, a legend turned out to be real. In Japan, a question remains unanswered. In India, a sacred text proved more accurate than any modern survey. In Egypt, a tunnel points to a queen who may have outsmarted Rome even in death. And in the Bahamas, a road leads somewhere that no one has the courage to follow. The ocean does not forget, it collects. And one day, when the glaciers finish melting and the seas rise once more, it will collect again.